right, could we rise to the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the roll call, Ms. Mason.
Mrs. Fryrick? Here. Mr. Posnow?
Here.
Mr. Robinson?
Here.
Mr. Sanders?
Here.
Mr. Scalette?
Here.
Mr. Schrader? Mr. Sears?
Here.
Mr. Toman?
Here.
Mr. Watts?
Here. A reminder, please silence your cell phones for the purpose of the meeting. This is their first opportunity for public comment. All comments and questions will be addressed to the President. Board and staff members will not normally respond to comments or questions during the meeting unless recognized by the President for this purpose. Comments will be limited at the discretion of the President to 5 minutes or less. Do we have any comments? Please state your name and address.
I'm always been very short.
There's nobody to address there.
I've always been super
I
short.
think you can just tell it in there. Yep.
Okay. My name is Krista Vanzanardi. I live at 530 South Kershaw Street. I'm an RN. I have my master's in education. I'm certified in mobile research. I work with physicians out of Yale and out of the UK. Locally, I work with our society's most vulnerable population as an L&D nurse and in hospice. I am a mom to 4 kiddos that are 18, 9, 7, and 2. Unfortunately, some things have not been right within the walls of YSSD, and despite the letter from the board president dated 12/19/17 to the entire YS community ensuring substantial change in composition and leadership of the new board, as the board we realize the importance of transparency as we move forward, the lack of information to the public remains. The PSBA guide to school board states that the board is to be an advocate of public education, leading the district, accentuating and reinforcing the positives while correcting the negative. At first, I could not put my finger on it, but I finally figured out some important things that the board and the community need to know. Why did I feel compelled to figure this out? Because when I was provided to YS at my own expense a full educational evaluation report from a local, well-respected, knowledgeable school psychologist with over 30 years of experience that did the work for the district and provided a diagnosis, it was thrown to the side and ignored by Dr. Stoltz. Thankfully, my daughter had a very strong second-grade teacher that read the report and worked with the psychologist, and my daughter did show growth in second grade. Then, in third grade, the report again was disregarded, and YS did their own Tier 3 interventions the YS way. This Tier 3 intervention was called Phonics for Reading, and I was reassured in an email dated 5/22/17 from Dr. Furman that this would continue in fourth grade. Through my daughter's school career, she has been followed and tested at intervals by this private school psychologist. After the completion of third grade, which included the Tier 3 interventions, the Phonics for Reading program, she showed a significant decline in pseudoword decoding. At the end of second grade, she tested at a 2.4. By the end of third grade, this score had decreased to 1.6. At a meeting in May with the team from East York, the specialist, Ms. McClure, told me that Chloe showed growth on her own curve. We all know that there is no possible way to show growth starting at a 2.4 and decreasing to 1.6. I was lied to. How does this not break the de minimis law unanimously passed in the Supreme Court, which states the school must provide higher educational standards for children with special needs? As commented by Chief Justice John Roberts, a student offered an education program providing merely more than 6 minutes. Progress from year to year can hardly be said to have offered an education at all. Receiving instruction that aims so low is tantamount to sitting idly, waiting the time when they're old enough to just drop out. Can you read this?
Yeah, sure. The first item, I already emailed each of you and Dr. Redding 3 times how YS teaches reading K through 2. All the research shows the most effective way to teach people how to read is backed by over 30 years of scientific research. It clearly shows that reading must be taught using a systematic, multi-sensory model that explicitly teaches reading. The pacing is determined by the child, not by the cycle day. This is supported by the National Institute of Literacy, the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, and the U.S. Department of Education. It has been proven effective in PA in the pilot program that was started in 2015 through 2018 regarding Act 69, the Dyslexia Pilot Program. Other states already have laws enacted. It is only a matter of time for Pennsylvania to make this model a requirement for all. The model shows that it not only helps children that struggle with decoding, but also English language learners and students with gaps due to living in impoverished situations. This research model does not wait until the children fail, then intervene. It catches them before this occurs, unlike Storytown or Wonders, which are the very same type of program. Children will be able to learn to read no matter the program. Do you want to keep going?
Yeah, I can. Thank you.
Take like 30 seconds, please.
It is unreasonable to expect every child to learn at the same rate at the exact same time in the exact same way. Any pediatrician will reassure you that it is normal for every child to reach milestones at varying times. It is actually expected, which is why milestones are given a range of months, not specific dates. Phonological awareness occurs between the ages of 4 to 6. Despite this, YSSD has decided to use about $500,000 in our community's tax dollars to purchase a program with the expectation that every child in every building will be taught at the same rate, the same time, flipping the same pages, comprehending all the same. Little information was provided on how teachers will learn this new program and teach it with fidelity. I reached out to the textbook company of Wonders for some information on their program. As I viewed the book myself, I was left with even more questions than answers. To find out, I contacted Mr. Doug Long, a sales representative from McGraw-Hill, the producers of Wonders. He was eager to assist me in learning more about Wonders. Since my questions were academically based, he reached out to their academic design team, and they contacted me. Through this communication, I have learned that unfortunately it appears, once again, the administrative leadership was dishonest to the board and community. In Dr. Stoltz's presentation to the board, she stated that Wonders had something for everybody and for learning support, Tier 2 and Tier 3, and English language learners. She also reported that the intervention aligned with the program. In Mr. Long's email to me on 1/19/18, he wrote, "The companion program to Wonders is called Wonders Works. Wonders Works is an additional program for other students that Wonders doesn't reach." He continued on to say, "We currently do not have any Wonders Works, the Parallel 2 program that works alongside Wonders, and hopefully that will change shortly. Miami-Dade is the one that took part in the study, does attribute the connections to the Wonders and the Wonders Works as the reason for their qualitative and quantitative success." Again, YSSD, per recommendations from Dr. Stoltz, only purchased Wonders, not Wonders Works. Also, Wonders Works is not even available to be purchased. What is the planning to assist children with specific learning disabilities? The FAIL model is not good enough for our children. They need to be identified in kindergarten, not 3rd grade. All research points to the fact that these students' specific learning disabilities are treatable if identified early. After viewing Dr. Stoltz's presentation and slideshow on the next literacy program, it was apparent that Dr. Stoltz is unaware that in 2000, the National Reading Panels established the 5 pillars of reading, but they and it stopped short of specifically defining knowledge and skills the teachers must know. The Knowledge and Practice Standards for Teachers of Reading was published in 2010, and it's currently updated to be even more specific. These specific guidelines for the teaching of reading, the ELA National Common Core Standards, are not the Pennsylvania ELA Common Core Standards. In fact, our standard align only 85% of the National Common Core. Why are YS teachers not using these standards? The pilot study in Pennsylvania just released its findings. They line up with 30 years of scientific research and the fact that countless state laws that require the teachers to know these standards to use them. This will be coming to Pennsylvania, yet YS is trailing behind, not even knowing these standards exist. We have excellent teachers, but they are not provided with up-to-date professional development. How many students are being denied the basic civil right to be a competent reader? How many students are denied FAPE because there is an administrator who decides how to give these trademarked assessments? The DRA-2 is a tool used to find a child's reading level. It is a red flag that a child is a struggling reader if his or her score is below the state benchmark in reading. According to child find laws, the child must be identified as possibly having a disability and treated as such until proven otherwise. Because YS is reporting instructional levels, many children may be missed and not be identified as needing an intervention. Pearson states that the DRA finds the child's independent reading level while giving teachers information as to what specific instruction the child needs to grow as a reader. The DRA can identify children who may have a specific learning disability in decoding if the district used the word analysis component of the DRA. The district has already purchased this and is supposed to use it if the child is below the what Pearson determines. This was never used. This would show if a child had a decoding issue with decoding words. When federal and state educational statutes reference reading levels, they mean independent reading levels. The state and federal goals is to have a child on reading at grade level independently by the end of third grade. Reading is not natural to the brain, therefore it must be explicitly taught. Research shows that over 85% of students with an IEP in any given school district is because of a decoding or language deficit. This should be picked up early, interventions given, and fixed. Dyslexia is so misunderstood. It is difficult to decode words, and it is a deficiency in the child's ability to process. It has become clear that Dr. Merkel did not educate the board, and therefore it is difficult for you all to make informed decisions.
30 seconds, please.
I can give the names of several people that made decisions that were not only bad for my child, but illegal and denied my child of FAPE. Please stop trusting everything that the administrators tell you. Read the DRA technical manual, the teacher's manual, and look at the teacher's scores. All of this is online. Call Pearson, call McGraw-Hill. Start asking questions. How are the reading specialists and teachers trained? How are they trained every year? What is the Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention plan in our district? What is the cost? Why do we follow a failure model? I'm aware that administrators will show you numbers and everything looks great. YS reading scores are wonderful. You're here to serve your community, and I understand you're volunteers, but please be informed by other means. When you're looking at the data, don't forget about the students that drop out, go to cyber school, a private school, or are homeschooled. How many students is that? You forget we live in a district where parents are blessed to get outside tutors, and most of the wonderful YS teachers will work extra to catch up students on their own, which also seems to be unsupported by administrators. The district needs, by law, needs to provide what our children need. That for early intervention, the effective K-2 teachers need to be experts. They need to be trained to give the reports accurately. Parents deserve to know that a 93% accuracy rate at an intervention rate is actually a serious concern. Stop keeping parents in the dark. There is a strict protocol to give the DRAs just like any other assessments.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly, your written remarks can be shared as part of the record. Okay. So if you want to make a copy, so the full content.
Where would I send that?
To the board secretary.
Okay.
Wendy. Hmm?
Are there any other comments?
Charlie Snyder, retired truck executive. I was here last month, and unbeknownst to me, last Wednesday, we had the head of Thaddeus Stevens College in Lancaster speak at Rotary. Are you familiar with the school, what they do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was interesting because I brought up the fact that with the VOTEC school, the only time they ever hear about it or see anything is 8th grade. The woman that's in charge over there said they get the kids in Lancaster City, kindergarten, 5th grade, and 8th grade, and then they have the teachers or whoever else is available to spend time to make sure if these kids want to go there. And the city school kids, if they pass high school, they get a full ride for 2 years. It was just amazing because they cover so many things, and she's even volunteered. I gave Dr. Redding her card to try to get her to come over and speak to all 16 school districts at one time. If not, at least get her over here to Suburban, because I think we're missing the boat. There's a lot of, I went up and talked to her afterwards. I was just amazed, and I didn't know they were that involved in the community. So they really push this in the city, but I think they're working with York High, they're working in Harrisburg, and she's trying to expand the whole thing. But I just feel, after having worked with these guys for many, many years from VOTEC, and I just found out the other day, which he confirmed, but some of these kids can take certain courses at VOTEC. They can stay here and do their math, English, etc., and go there, and they can't do diesel mechanics, but they can do automotive mechanics, and I don't know what else is available. But I think that that's another way to reach out, because the kids don't want to leave because of sports and friends. They can go take the main courses here and just go there for their specialty. So in the long run, it'd be a win-win situation for York Suburban as well as for them. And of course, he said the diesel mechanic program right now is 100 students. They can't expand any further, but if we had more kids that would go there just for that particular part and finish school here so they'd have their sports and everything, it would open up some of the classrooms if they could utilize it for other kids. So is the woman here that was running the show last week, or didn't handle VOTEC?
Lois Ann is out to, yeah.
I'll leave this here.
Okay, thank you.
That's the woman's name and the contact over there, okay? And if you have any questions, they're speaking tonight, so they can
right.
stay on.
Yeah. Any other comments?
Joe Bryant, 216 Greystone Road. On September 25th, 2017, I shared my concerns with the former school board. I requested that the school board conduct an independent investigation into the bullying and intimidation of our previous administrator. Yes, that administrator is no longer part of this district, but unfortunately, the culture of fear is still very much present among the staff, according to a secondary education teacher in our district. The legacy of fear, retaliation, manipulation, and control are still impacting the decision-making process in our district. The previous board sent a very clear message to the teachers and staff that their voices do not matter. If they had an ounce of respect for these hardworking individuals, they would have moved forward with my request to conduct an independent investigation. How can the staff or teachers communicate with the board without retaliation or fear of losing their job? Surveys are not the answer. Every teacher knows a survey can be traced. Surveys are filled with leading questions. The demographic questions they are required to answer reveal how long the teacher has been employed and what building they work at. No wonder the teachers are not forthcoming with sharing information of the daily torment they endured. I urge the present board to seek the truth so our district can heal and move forward. We need to rebuild and stop putting Band-Aids on situations. Teachers cannot be afraid to speak the truth. We need to foster a culture of professional courage. How can any parent be assured the issues plaguing our district will be properly handled? Cover-up is ingrained in our staff and students. The cover-up has a huge financial impact on our community. We're spending millions of dollars on programs instead of sending teachers to conferences. The teachers can learn what is best practice to teach the most vulnerable and at-risk kids. Buying an expensive reading program cannot help our at-risk children to read. Educating a teacher to properly screen who are at risk will help every suburban student to read and feel successful. To quote the Stock and Leader website, our education lawyers, working closely with the school district administrators and boards to ensure the future of education is healthy, strong, and bright. We're dedicated to keeping you up to date on the most recent changes and trends in school law, and to providing practical advice for a strong peace of mind. Trust us. And then there's further quote on that, but I'm not going to waste your time. Should I assume that the solicitor is educating the administration and the board as to how to stay compliant with school law? If so, I'm confused of the actions of the previous administrators' abuse of power. The previous board demonstrated a lack of knowledge and transparency with the handling of these decisions, which impacted our staff and students. These questions arise. The question arises of how is the current board trained in educational law so that they can be proactive and not reactive? I will continue to question and demand that our school be free from intimidation and retaliation for our students and staff.
Thank you. There are any other comments? We have the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting of January 8th, 2018, and the regular monthly meeting of December 18th. Submitted. I have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second. Mason, can we just assume they're approved?
Yes.
Okay, we'll approve those as submitted. Mr. Sears, Treasurer's Report.
Treasurer's Report, well, this will be my first one. And you know that we have these attachments that in many cases go on for many, many pages. There's a lot of detail. I just wanted to recap a couple of them so that the folks in the audience and those of us that don't really have the time to look at every line of that report can get a sense of where we're coming from. So here we go. The funds, there's essentially two, the general fund and others lumped together. The total beginning balance in that is something on the order of $23 million, $22.9 million, a lot of money. Receipts during the period were $7.6 million, disbursements were $14.7, so that took us down $7.1 million to a balance of about $15.8. Still fairly healthy, but that's just the vagaries of cash flow and how that works. We also have money invested in CDs. Beginning of the period, we had a face amount of $27 million, projected interest of $85,000, which is just a reflection of the times we live in, for a total expected investment value of $111,600. The latest maturity is 6/8/2018. So I'll just ask Karine a question. That means you're busy with CDs, correct? Mm-hmm. Because they're coming and going all the time. They're short-term investments. And I have a question, and then I'll ask for a vote on the consent agenda, and that's this. When I look at the revenue and expense reports, I see a column called Revised Budget. That amount reflects exactly what's in the PDE 2028.
Not the
correct?
Revised budget. The revised budget column reflects what the board has approved for budget transfers.
I'm looking at the totals, and it looks like it's the same number that's actually in. So is there a point during the school year that we actually revise the revised or put something in the way of a footnote so that we know what the anticipated total revenues and total expenses are as we progress through the year? They're not going to hit those numbers exactly.
That's what the budget document does. We hit those numbers there. The revised budget and the actual budget numbers, we need to keep them reflected in the system. so that when it comes through the audit, they can tie in.
Okay, I understand that, but is there a way we can do a supplementary number during the year that says this is what we really expect the revenue and the expenses to look like?
Not in the system, but the budget document that I do for the board does that, gives an estimate of what we feel the
Okay.
revenue and.
Is that this
Will we
this
see that
document
tonight?
you're talking
Okay.
about?
Thank you, that was my question. All right, so now proceeding on with the consent agenda, would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there questions of any kind on these items? If not, the chair moves that we accept these reports as submitted.
Second. And you can do a short.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. The board met on January 15th, 2018 in executive session as permitted by Section 707 of the Sunshine Act for the purpose of discussing personnel matters. No official action was taken. The board also met prior to this meeting in executive session as permitted by the same Section 707 for the purpose of discussing personnel and student matters. No official action was taken. For an update on the superintendent search, we have begun the process. We are receiving applications. We will be scheduling our interviews over the next several months. So the process is in place and beginning to work. And the last piece on my agenda is we begin talking about measurements for board goals. And we've gone back and forth several times. I would like to propose that we now take them in the form they're in, turn them over to the policy committee to take goals and come up with measurable KPIs to present to the board, if that's reasonable to everybody.
Take it from there.
Gotcha.
Take your time.
Thank you.
Trying to think of another candidate.
Different committee.
That's right, let's kick it across the room.
Lois Ann. She's not
She's not here.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a more productive way of actually coming up with measures, so thank you. And that ends my report.
Do you want to share the updated letter?
We have...
With the comments.
Let's send them all down and we put the others at the end. This is the letter going out to the community announcing focus groups and sort of the first update of where we are with the search.
Okay.
Active
Okay. Move to a number of items on my report. The first item is student enrollment. And at the request of, at our last meeting, when you do a link, open this link, we have now included a school-by-school, grade-by-grade reporting of those students, those 115 students from York Suburban School District who are in one of those cyber or charter programs. To give you a sense of the variety of programs that are being utilized by families of this district and the grade levels associated. And very quickly, a middle school group of 24, a high school group of 46 students. So there's a significant number of students, and as we work through this process of what would you want your next superintendent to take a look at? Here's 115 students who are choosing not to be in the best school district in York County, and why is that? And what are the backstories? And certainly, it is a financial concern. Help me out with the exact, or at least a ballpark, Corrine, on the tuition the district's responsible without question in paying.
About $11,000 per regular instructional student, and for students that would have an IEP, approximately $24,000.
So it's good to take a look at these statistics, and this would be part of our monthly enrollment report. Mr. Sears, you look like you have a comment.
Every time we see one of these, there's a chance for improvement. So we're in continuous improvement mode. Number one, I'd like to ask that the kindergarten column be moved to the far left.
KF.
And the second request I'd make was that we put the cybers in one lump with a subtotal, the brick and mortar cybers in another lump with a subtotal, and then a grand total. So I think there are two different management challenges with cyber and brick and mortar.
For us to manage, you mean?
For our district to manage and for us to have insight on.
Okay. Okay. The other report that's linked here is our enrollment report by class, and there are questions that we had asked on class size and where students are in each of the buildings. This is our up-to-date. Now, this is a January 1 total, and I know based on conversations we've had that we, in the however many days we've been in session since January 1st, Dr. Furman, these numbers are not up to date, correct?
That would be correct, Dr.
Okay. Duly noted. And it's not correct in that they're higher than they were before, not that they're lower than they are there. Again, information that we need to monitor, and certainly information that plays into some of our budget discussions. On the cyber piece, we have exceeded the amount of payout that we have budgeted. And I personally had asked the question, why don't we accept tuition students when we freely allow 114 or 115 students to leave? Again, a question I think as we look at our policies, procedures, and practices, we really would like to have 115 more students. If they were all paying tuition to come, would we say we don't want them to come? Another point of conversation. I think at some point in the next 6 to 8 months, maybe the board might want to look at that standing policy to keep students out. Second item on my agenda requires board action. So it's a student discipline hearing, and I'll pause for the board.
So moved.
Second. Corinne, we can do this short.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Item C on my report is, again, going to require action here in a moment. But within school code, there's a provision that districts must operate 180 days of instruction. And if they don't have a 180 days scheduled, they can ask for an exception to do less than 180 days, provided that you still meet the 900 hours of instruction for elementary and 990 hours for secondary. So on January 5th, we were scheduled as a district to have a split day where we were going to have instruction in the morning and professional development in the afternoon. It was a day whenever we were needed a delay for weather, and that day I made the decision that we would convert it to all professional development time and ask for an exception with the PDE form. So this motion is about asking permission from PDE to operate less than 180 days in this school year, but recognizing that we have ample hours of instruction for both elementary and secondary. So I'm certainly open to more discussion. This district has historically filed for Act 80 days, but really didn't need Act 80 days because you only need to file for the exception if you're going to have less than 180. We will need to file after this motion, and if this motion is accepted. So I'll pause and ask for a motion and discussion or questions, whichever is appropriate.
Second. Discussion? Questions?
Where are we now with respect to days?
We have used our 2 built-in makeup days, so we won't, Friday before Easter is the only holiday that we have left after. Now we would start adding them to the end of the year. It's our next makeup day.
So as of right now, if nothing else happened,
We have 179 days. Yeah.
Other questions? Ms. Mason, let's have a short vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Okay. Next item on my agenda is pausing and recognizing that January is school board member, school director recognition month, and certainly want to use this opportunity to publicly thank the members of our board for the service that they provide in a volunteer basis, and ask that we go on record as from my point of view and the staff that we really do appreciate and value the work of the school board in supporting public education and supporting public education here in the York Suburban District. I know there's a couple other pieces of thanks. We have a video that I'm going to ask Wendy to cue up. That is part of our and I'll give credit to Dr. Munoz for pulling that together, and Dr. Adams. It now might be appropriate time, and Dr. Fruman.
I know that Dr. Gully had also shared a variety of different videos, PowerPoints, and things like that Ms. Irwin was going to forward and share with each of you. My staff picked out some of their favorite pictures to create a poster to adorn the wall with for you. And so on behalf of my colleagues, my teachers, administrators, students, and quite frankly as a parent who very purposefully lives in this district for her own children, thank you for all that you do for us and enable us to do for our kids.
Thank you.
And I can echo Dr. Furman as being a professional in the district as well as a parent in the district of 3. So certainly appreciate all you do. I know the ins and outs of your volunteer position and the countless hours that you do put in. So from a personal perspective, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to work in this district, work along with you, as well as from a parent's perspective. So on behalf of the secondary, we have goodie bags for everyone. I brought in one, BYSWell. Hopefully that motto rings, you're familiar with that. They're 9-8. I'll put this one out there, so plug your stations. They'll all be out there if you wouldn't mind just grabbing a goodie bag on the way out. We certainly appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we also have a certificate and an official bag with the new logo for each person, and we're a little tight, so Ellen, we'll pass that this way. John, thank you.
Thank you.
Rich, coming that way.
This has our paycheck in it, right?
Yes, it does. Yes.
Every penny of it.
Skillet.
My mind's still light.
We'll lay that there for a little bit.
You haven't been here long enough to get a paycheck.
I hear you.
You do understand that.
Mr. Sears.
It would be in hair dollars.
Mr. Toman.
Oh,
And Mr. Watt. And again, thank you for your great service. Yes, we have folks from the tech school going to do budget as soon as Corrine has that motion on the floor. I did also have note, we've been talking about the intermediate unit getting feedback for making some revisions, and they have invited superintendents, business managers, special ed directors to a focus group session that's going to happen on February 13th, and they're looking at, you know, how do they communicate, what's their professional development look, what's their financial model look like, you know, how their, you know, program efficiency. So they really are taking to heart some of the concerns that we've expressed and other districts have expressed, and I just wanted to make you aware that there's lots of opportunities for us to begin that process. And I think, unless there were other items from the administrators, yes, go right ahead.
So, boy, can a girl pick a night for her board report or what? Let me tell you. So first, let me give you an update. When I was here in December, I had the opportunity to talk to you about the East York Night of Excellence that we were planning. So I wanted to give you some numbers on a rundown of how that shaped up for us. We had 16 different student families and staff members for a total of 67 people come to the East York cafeteria for a spaghetti dinner. We did our best to over-publicize and over-communicate. Everyone was welcome to come out for the book distribution event, whether they came for dinner or not. I didn't count the number of people in the gym for that, but I do know that we handed out 62 student books that evening, and all of the other children got their books the next day. But our One School, One Book initiative is off, and we're continuing to read about Kenny and the Dragon together and answer our daily questions. And so for a trial run at this, we're super excited with how everything is taking off, and I'm sure there'll be 4 nights of excellence to come moving forward. But then I thought, gee, wouldn't it be a good idea with so many new school board members to talk to them about data and how we use data at East York Elementary?
That's a great idea.
Yeah, well, you know, what can a girl say? So here's, okay, I'm going to ad-lib a little bit here. So for teachers to grow students through achievement and then just sheer growth, it really, everything comes back to triangulation. And the first step to grow them is a triangulation between curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And so by having a strong curriculum, such as everyday math, and having a strong curriculum, such as Storytown, which by all means is 10 years old, we've had to supplement with the addition of Common Core, but we've done that and we've worked hard to do that well. that really takes care of the curriculum component. With those curriculums come valid and reliable assessments that the manufacturers create. So that one outlier that's really left for us is that instructional piece and that instructional component. So that's part of the equation there. Then what we need to do is throughout the beginning of this school year, we have collected data from a variety of points because we don't want to give kids one exam and say, we're going to base all of your instruction and all of our measurement on this one thing. So we do look at past PSSA data because it is important information. We do look at current grade level benchmarking data. Right now at East York, we rely heavily on Study Island to do that. Our students take 3 benchmark exams a year. They take their first one in September, and then in December, prior to the holiday break, they had taken a second benchmark exam. Okay. The third piece, how we triangulate that data then, is we look at the grade book data of what we're seeing from daily performance on these valid measurements that come with the curriculum. And then another component added in there is teacher observation. We hire really good teachers, so we need to talk to them about what they're seeing through their day-to-day instruction formatively. Okay. So historically, what happens when you get that benchmark data is we will do 2 things with it. We'll do an item analysis. We'll look at the questions. How do those questions measure up to the curriculum? Have we taught that information to the students yet? Second of all, we'll look at the language of those questions. Is it worded in a way that we presented it to students? Do we need to go back? Do we need to revisit? So you do your item analysis to check to make sure your curriculum's been covered, and if not, is it something that we plan on covering before the next benchmark? Because sometimes there are some alignment issues. The second thing that we've historically done is we then sort the student achievement on these benchmark exams, and we'll order the kids top to bottom, bottom to top, however you want to do it, however you want to sort them for that performance. And we look at our bands of students. We look at how the top tier of students are performing. How is that middle tier of students performing, and how are those lower students performing? With that, we compare it from the first benchmark to the second benchmark. Are those students making growth? If those students aren't showing signs of growth, then what we do is we look at what intervention is needed, a Tier 2 or a Tier 3 intervention. Sometimes they need more time at a slower pace with a more depth of instruction, and that's where our specialists will come in. Sometimes we might find over time that the Tier 2 intervention isn't working, that we need to move to a Tier 3 intervention, which is a moving curriculum oftentimes. Not always, but oftentimes. So my role as an administrator is, I believe my role as an administrator, is I do a lot of the data analysis as far as I create the charts and the sorting. I don't want my master teachers spending time sorting numbers and in spreadsheets and making charts. And not everybody feels this way. This is my approach. But then what I want to do is I want to sit down and have the here's what with the teachers and present them the data and peek into their minds and learn from them. So is this a trend? Is this new? Is this different? Especially over time, because let's face it, they have more elementary experience than I do right now. So I have to trust those professionals. After the here's what, like here's what it is, you move into the now's what. Now what? Now what are we going to do about it? And so this year, with a year and a half more experience under my belt, I wanted to change the now what narrative. So we still sorted the kids the way that we always do. We're still looking at their growth over time. But instead of that glass half empty lens, what haven't we done yet? Who haven't we moved yet? We're still doing that because the individual student matters. But the way we're going to spend our time over the next month and a half before the February benchmark at East York is when we're focusing on that now what, we're going to do it from more of a growth mindset. The same thing that we as adults preach to our children every day, that not yet, that we can get there. This, for the next month and a half, that's how we're going to flip data at East York. And so what I did with the data, beyond just that sort of students, is I went through, and with my teachers at each grade level, I presented, okay, these are your student scores on benchmark number 1. So for a student starting out, whatever grade level this might have been, to start the year out with students showing a 53% mastery of content, that wasn't too shabby in September for that grade level standard. But clearly, by the end of the year, we want more than 53 students to have that mastery. So what we do, we teach, we implement the curriculum. There's the instructional piece, but then at benchmark number 2, you can see all sorts of different numbers coming up here. And then what I did is I just simply looked at those growth percentages. Same curriculum, same assessment, but clearly teacher 2 in this band, teacher 2 has got a skill with teaching that literature text. They're doing something. Different kids, different populations, but I'm looking at it from a growth sort of percentage thing. So what we then do is, once a cycle, my teachers meet with me as a team, and so what we'll be doing is teacher 2 is going to lead that group's meeting. When that grade level team meets that particular cycle, that teacher is going to share their instructional strategies. They're going to share their magic, because clearly they're doing something a little bit different and getting some sort of a little bit different result. And it's those small instructional tweaks and different, I have no other way, that it factor. Based on your own children's experience, you recognize that different teachers have different strengths and different weaknesses. And so we're approaching this data through this idea that we all have strengths and we all have opportunities in areas that we can grow. And so we're in it together, so let's put our strengths out on the table and learn from one another. Let's grow one another, and then in turn grow our students. So this was my timely, half-full presentation of how we're looking at data and how we're continuing to learn from one another as adults to not only grow our own craft, but to also grow that of our students. Questions about how we use data at East York in the general sense there?
Just a definition at the top. You've got this PSSA equals 33 to 47. Tell us what that's all about.
All right. So in a former lifetime, Mr. Sears, I was a coach, and I'm all about the X's and the O's sort of thing. So I wanted my teachers to know that the literature text will make up 33 to 47% of their students' scores on the PSSA.
That's what I need to know.
That was
I have no idea what that range was.
Yep, that's what the weighting is. And so I'm all about teaching that whole child, but at the same time, if I can get that little extra focus to get that leverage and tilt that, that's what I want to do.
Okay, then the next question again is just look at one of those cells. Now that chart just got rolled up, by the way, but the one that says 53, just tell me what that means again.
That means that would indicate that 53% of that teacher's students showed proficiency on benchmark 1.
Switch from percent to student count, but that's okay.
Those are percentages, yeah.
Okay. And then the last question is, can you give me an example of what somebody like teacher 2 might suggest as that tweak that the other teachers can actually implement?
Absolutely. So, so looking back at today, we had a team meeting today, and one of the teachers, they had shared their approach, and we were focused more on the language cell, if you will. And so the teachers talked about, for them, it was consistency. And so that they begin as their morning work. The first 10 minutes every day, they have the students log on to a program that we've purchased for them called MobyMax. And so every day for 10 minutes, the students go in and they work on completing exercises related to grammar, okay? But a lot of people in my building are using MobyMax. What they learned today was you can set up your students' accounts so that instead of it being something random about grammar that comes up, if I just taught prepositions last week, the teacher who's getting that bigger bump, what she was doing is she was programming it for her kids that they were all getting preposition questions on this particular day or over this particular band of days. And so MobyMax is a resource that they all have and can use, but this one teacher, she narrowed it in a little bit more, she focused it in, and then she has that daily repetition with it, and that was the takeaway. The other piece of it was she has she creates grammar journals, but she does it in a way that they're manipulative, so the kids are gluing in flip charts and different like peekaboo things and in a variety of different ways so that they can have this interactive notebook to refer back to and study. Those were her 2 to 3 things that she shared with the other team members today.
Now, does that mean that you'll look at some point to see if they're all implementing these things, or is it essentially still up to them?
Well,
she shared some really interesting
She
points.
did. She shared some really good things. So when we get to benchmark number 3, and I look, if I have somebody who's still struggling to grow at that point, then I need to go back to them and I need to say, okay, I've given you this added resource. Am I going to go in every day and say,
No,
let me
I'm
see your
not
active
asking you to
notebook?
say,
No,
okay,
no.
tomorrow you got to have MobyMax
Correct.
configured to concentrate on.
I'm not going to do that, but I've also learned now from these teachers. So if I'm not seeing growth after this 3rd benchmark, I'm going to have the conversation with the teacher. Well, we learned that this is the best practice. Have you implemented it? When? How? To figure out how I can help them to grow those kids, those students.
Thank you.
Do you find when you've got your data, you're ready to go,
I love it.
you're rolling in with the data, do you find when you sit down with the teacher, they already know what the scores are before you show them the data? They know who can do what? They spend every day doing this with the...
I'm going to say yes and no. Do you know what I mean? There are some who you get to know your kids and you spend day in and day out with them. But there are some kids who you might not see for that whole block of instruction. They might be going to the English language teacher. They might be spending 45 minutes with the reading specialist. They might be pulled out for reading support. They might be working with a different teacher in a small group in the back of the room. You know what I mean? So I don't want to say it's more often than not, the surprises are at how much they've grown. Like, I knew they got it, but wow, I didn't know they got it, sort of thing.
Other? Thank you, Dr. Furman. Yep. Dr. Adams.
Well done, Dr. Furman. And that's why I miss working with Dr. Furman at the high school. We'd complement each other really well because I'm not going to talk to you about data, although I do have I have one percentage that I'll end with. I'm going to start with now that she's throwing data out here is that compliments to go out to our district in regard to athletics. Niche.com, which this is nothing that's scientific, but it's based on student parent reviews and athletics offered at the school district along with student participation numbers. We were ranked 40th in the state, and we were the top York County school. Central did receive, they were ranked 44, but we were the only 2 ranked in the top 50. So, you know, that says a lot about us. And I'll say this, most of it's probably coming from our participation numbers because students, and this isn't just sports, I'm going to go off other extracurriculars. We have a very high percentage of our students that are participating in extracurricular activities here at the school district. So that's one thing I've always been proud about working here in the high school. But Elise, on her leadership, which is great this time, she did reach out and she said, okay, Dr. Adams, I know you're coming to the board meeting, so that you don't have to look at me and I nod whether it's on my report or not. This is what I'm going to say and what are you going to say. So we've coordinated well for tonight, so Elise, thanks for that. But the semester change, we just went through that at the high school. 3 different endings to that, I might say. We kept extending a little bit because it's not as big a deal at some of the other levels, but at the high school where classes are actually, some of them, semester classes, are stopping, some of those teachers did need that extra day, and then we might get a day, but then it was either an early dismissal or a late start because of the weather. So although My
Yeah.
kids are big fans of Dr. Redding right now, I can say that.
They all are.
They all.
Yeah, any building in the
We don't
district
have to
can
go
be
to
welcome.
school, and we're not gonna make that day up. They want him to stay until they graduate.
Not happening.
We're working on that. Mini-thon, I'm gonna let, Lise talk to you about mini-thon and Sunoco dance, but that's a great topic, and I'm not gonna steal anything from her, but it's really neat how that's starting to take shape. Musical this year is Shrek. That'll be coming up in early part of March. We have March 2nd, a Friday night show, and then March 3rd will be a matinee in the afternoon, and then an evening show on Saturday, no Sunday show. But they are working with Susquehannock High School, who had a lot of costumes, so hopefully that can help cut down the cost. So that'll be a pretty neat show for them this year. We just had an outstanding portfolio show. Hopefully some of you got over to see that. They run that. Mrs. Geipel and Mrs. Hornadell and Mrs. Furjanic, they lead that, and it's open from 7:30 in the morning till 7:30 at night, and it's constant. And it's really neat to see, and I was very impressed with our students' talent level that we have. And then we'll have another one in the springtime too, because those are semester courses. The Library Media Center, I just want to give you a little update on what's going on there. Mrs. Kendrick has done a great job of really ramping up participation in the Library Media Center. It's the hub for all the English research, and Mrs. Kendrick used to be one of the English teachers that taught that research paper, which, by the way, is one thing that our students go off when they leave and go off to college, they come back. They may have thought they were an average writer when they were with us, and then they're going to college and they're helping tutor students from other places on their papers because they're so strong and they have that literacy background, and that's a great thing for us when our students can go off and be that well-rounded in writing. And then a lot of it comes from the English department. They do such a great job of that. But now with Mrs. Kendrick and teaching them the bibliography and the process early on, that's a really good strength. She's branched out to now the biology and chemistry teachers are going in there. The history teachers are now. There's different avenues. So that's become a real special place for us at the high school. It recently hosted the mock interviews. And Mrs. Frederick, you're in to help interview. We had 20 community members come in, interviewed 165 seniors. They dress up, and it was neat the process they used. They had a senior sitting taking notes as another senior was sitting there with an interviewer. So they got to see it happening and hear it, and then they became the person that was being interviewed. So it was a really good real-life experience for them to sit in. I know some of our seniors walked away with business cards from the people that were interviewing them, which could potentially lead to something. So that's great on both ends. But they just hosted that, and that's really neat. Debates, if you've had kids go through here, Dr. Rumbaugh's class, again, did the debates in the auditorium. We had alumni come back to sit through those debates. Tons of parents were coming in and family members. Other classes come down, and that's just an opportunity to put those kids up on stage where they have to defend a topic. And it's really neat to see. So if you have the opportunity in the future, please join us for those debates because it's pretty neat to see what the kids can do. Scheduling, as you're planning budget-wise and everything for next year, we're already planning courses for next year. Counselors will be in this week. We'll start to get numbers around, and then by the end of February, Dr. Ellis will start looking at numbers. And then next year, student meetings, individual meetings will start in mid-March. So we're right around the corner from scheduling for next year. So everything is going well. I just made the announcement this morning. Welcome back to the first full week of school.
I'll do my best.
In over a month, because if you look at all the schedule, we pride ourselves on no schedule or very few schedule interruptions. And the last month has just been with the holiday break and weather related. We've had some, so we're looking forward to hopefully a full week. Well, I don't know how much everyone's looking forward to that full week. I didn't want to, burst them on a Monday morning, but hopefully we'll get a full week in here. The weather looks good. But things are going well. Questions? Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Okay. I think that's it from reporting standpoint.
Ms. Mason, Business Office Report.
Okay, thank you. The administration submits the proposed 2018-19 York County School of Technology budget for consideration and approval. Tonight we have with us Mr. Dave Thomas and Mr. Scott Rogers, who will review this through our discussion once we have a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you for inviting us tonight. We are pleased to be here and hope we can share a little bit of information about the school, and then we'll try to give a few highlights on the budget. How it's prepared and all. To get started, I think we've got a lot of things happen over there. There's still a lot of different groups of students in the area. They're very active in place, a lot of things going on. Here's our mission. We look at this every year. We recently updated it. This year, added a few things. To emphasize professional skills, lifelong learners, and recognizing the unique differences of all individuals and cultures in the school.
It's definitely special.
Go ahead.
What's definitely special about the York County School of Technology, it is full-time comprehensive in terms of academics and technical going together with all the extracurricular activities that you can see at a high school. So we set up goals for the school year, including some exams, increasing those to the following levels. That's where we need in terms of what the state sets up. We've done very well with our school performance profile, which we'll show you later on. And this is in terms of the data theme that we have tonight. These are the students that we're working with to make it to those levels. So we're happy about the progress we're making there. The other component that we have here with York County School of Technology is the end of program technical assessment that the students take over the course of three days at the end of their technical program. And we'll talk about that later on as well, our two goals that are there. And this is where we've seen our trend going up here in the past 4 years. We like the fact that we're over 90% advanced and competent. Explain that stuff later on.
We also have a goal for increasing non-traditional student enrollment in our programs, and see we have some examples there, and we're going very well with that goal statewide. That's actually a national goal for one of the purpose indicators.
What does that non-traditional?
That would mean like a girl in machining or automotives or any of the construction fields, something like that. It used to be medical, males in medical, but they stopped that one, and that was sort of a neutral trade now. So we also had a teacher-led initiative that we brought of our comprehensive plan last year to develop core values for the school. And we worked all year on them. We've been implementing them this year. There's the values that we came up with and statements to go along with each value, and we have them around the school. The teachers are working them in the curriculum. We hear from employers a lot that it's normally the students know the technical side of their jobs, but it's the professional skills and things that usually get new employees in trouble when they get a job. So when we talk to employers, that's what we've heard over and over. So these are some of the goals we're working with our students every day to develop. As you know, York County is very big. Somebody was very visionary in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s when they placed the school where it is. It's the center of the school. That's, some of the big counties have, like Lancaster, have 3 different schools, and our centers, we're right there in the middle. We do have long bus rides for some of our students, like in Delma or down Southwestern or up in past over there. We have 34 buses, and it works well. You have the luckiest, your students are the luckiest students in the county, being right here next door when it comes to getting to the school. These are, we keep data on our application and enrollment. As you can see, it's stayed steady. It's grown a good bit in the past, say, 8 or 9 years, and our enrollment has increased. This is about our stable level here, right around 1,700. Due to mainly to our staffing. The building could probably take some more students, but we're staffed 50 students, each technical teacher, and that fills the building. Here are your applications, right here, just a little history there. You're up this year. It may have been a result of the summer camp. Larry earlier mentioned that the students only hear about York Tech at 8th grade. That's not totally accurate. Last year, we did have several elementary schools schedule visits and tour the school, and we've had a summer camp for 2 years now for 6th and 7th graders. It's been very successful, several hundred students. Might be the proximity, but we've had a very good turnout in suburban at the camp. The students get to pick tech areas. We do emphasize the non-traditional there. I steer some of the students into some non-traditional explorations. A 3-day camp. Current enrollment. See our special education. There's your numbers there too.
There's 26 technical programs at the school. These are the ones that York suburban students are involved in, as well as a flex student that is involved in our full-time mechatronics program. It's not listed out there, but those are all the students in grades 9 through 12. They're involved in several of the technical programs. Many we haven't listed in terms of clusters, which you'll see not only in the brochure, but as we go through those later on in the next couple slides. One of the things you're going to see here in terms of York County School of Technology, the diversity that we have of the student body, not only coming from 14 sending school districts, but you'll see here in terms of York Tech, our student demographics here versus York counties, and then the numbers that we have here for our student enrollment and their backgrounds. So it's definitely something that we celebrate across the board. It's a very unique school in York County with demographics.
Here's our data on free and reduced meal eligibility. A fairly high percentage of our students, special ed, 23%, and our ELL students. Here are just a little overview of the school, the member programs, how we deliver them. We have numerous articulation agreements. One thing we started several years ago, when we have an open house, parents would come and they knew what the technical programs were, but we get a lot of almost questioning our academic courses. I don't think the feeling was that they were up to par with their home districts. So we started implementing increasing rigor in the technical programs a long time ago. We started right with honors English 9, and we worked it up through. We have honors in all of our academic classes. We now have AP courses, and our most recent endeavor is we've entered the International Baccalaureate CP program. This is new everywhere. We're one of the 3 schools in the state who've entered the International Baccalaureate career program. We get our site visit in a month or so, the second phase of the application. And this will, a lot of our medical students and our IT students and our engineering tech students, they will be going on to college and studying, and we needed the increased rigor in our academic programs. So this is a new exciting thing we have going. So starting for next year's 11th graders.
In terms of the vocational subsidy, Pennsylvania Department of Education and Bureau of Career and Tech Ed understand that technical education does cost more than a regular comprehensive high school education, so that's why they do have a vocational subsidy that is included within our budget in terms of that budget development. And the allocation, based on the district versus state enrollment, every 5 years we have a review by the Bureau of Career and Technical Education that comes out to make sure that our technical programs are meeting the standards that are in place under Chapter 339, many of which stem from this Jobs for the Future report, which came out in the early 2000s. But then also just as a number of school board members, when you go to your PSBA meetings, you'll see you should have these handouts available to you or sessions about career and technical education and what's being done within the state of Pennsylvania. In terms of student access to career and technical education, this is a BEC that's put out there, but it says per the PA School Code, districts should not limit the attendance of students eligible for admission to a career and technical center. And that's where York County is very fortunate that we have such a large school with the number of technical programs that we have and the model school that's in place compared to the other 79 technical centers within the state. So it's definitely something we're getting a lot of requests, every month for other schools to come visit us, including Dr. Thomas hosted someone today.
I had some today from Philadelphia. Visiting school, we're going to cover our programs in the technical schools.
One of the things, it is career development. The students enter the technical program in 9th grade. They start out with a career tree, and they start doing their goal planning there. What do I need to do in this 4 years in this technical program to get that job that I want? And so this is created with our teachers and the occupational advisory committee members, which are employers from throughout the area. They come in and advise our technical teachers on what should be taught within those technical programs. So in terms of entry-level careers, students graduate and go right into those. Some that may need the apprenticeship or associate's degree or advanced certification, and then your professional careers up here. Students will be placing their leaves throughout the 4 years. Where are they going and what their plans are once they leave York County School of Technology. And this is something we're very happy about. So it takes the career planning to a whole other level. And this is integrated throughout the school. In terms of something that we're very happy about, the past 2 years, we got to work with our 14 sending school districts on developing the Chapter 339 Career Guidance Plan. So we hosted school teams for 6 days from 15, 16, and 16, 17, and did presentations in February and March of 2017. And actually have York Suburban's 3-ring binder here on everything that they do, K through 8 for career development, as well as 9 through 12 both here at York Suburban High School, as well as where we fall into the place at York County School of Technology. So that was definitely a model that we did to have that many districts come together. 137 individuals from the 14 school districts helped pull those together for each of the 14, including York County School of Technology.
We'll flip right through these. All these programs are listed in your brochure. This is the one that all the 8th graders get when we go to visit. We visit all the 8th grade programs throughout the county, and they get this brochure that tells them a little bit about each program, and then they have the opportunity to come to the open house. Some of them are pathways. The construction students will come and get an experience in all those areas before they finalize in one. Many of the programs, they go right into that program. Excuse me. The IT students, they go through all of those for 2 years and then pick one area that they're going to focus on. Medical professionals, that follows the same theory of going through numerous different areas to figure out where their interests are. You mentioned the diesel, that's one of his passions. I think you know,
Mr. Snyder.
And we have doubled that program. There are jobs in the diesel field. He says that he's very accurate. Those students are getting jobs everywhere. And we have an excellent diesel technology program right now. We have, right now, we'll end up maybe close to 100 students on co-op. They can go out in 11th grade final quarter and all through their senior year if they are up to speed and everything. And their tech teacher believes they're ready to going to pass the NOCTI. They don't want them leaving when they aren't going to pass the NOCTI. Our students, you may have heard of this, is available throughout the state with SOAR credits, and this would be an example of somebody in heat and ventilation and air conditioning, where they can earn and what credits they can earn throughout the state by just taking our courses. We have numerous industry certifications for the students, and these are just a few examples of many of our students leave with some sort of industry recognized certification. Like the ASC, for example, there, you've probably seen that in the dealers when you take your car.
One of the things we have in place is Life Track, where we follow up with the students. The day they graduate, they fill out a survey on what their plans are. We follow up 2 years after that, and then 5 years after that. Questions that we've added on to that in the 2 year and 5 years, we wanted to find out where are York County School of Technology students living. Over 70% of the students, we're getting approximately a 50 to 55% response rate. They're staying and living in York County. So that's one of the things to think about, and that's why we've also seen the numbers coming up. When we have open houses and doing the application process, we're seeing a lot more alumni sending their own students back to York County School of Technology. So that's where we're actually on 3rd generation now of individuals, and you can see this at graduations. But that gives you a general idea, what they're going into, and that's pretty consistent since we've been doing this since 2010. We also have a survey that's done through the Bureau of Career and Tech Ed as well that our technical teachers are involved with in terms of contacting and always keeping in contact with our alumni. This is where we were back in 2012. Definitely a few meetings from the state and some concerns. And Dr. Thomas and I worked very closely with our team of teachers, parents, our board, to put some things in place to make sure we can do a lot better. And this was, a lot of time locked in rooms, coming up with every idea possible and what can we do, because we believed in our students, we believed in our staff, and we wanted to make sure we could show the world that we could do this. So here's our school performance profile, how we've jumped here since 2012, 2013 to where we are for the past 3 years. Of 80%, which we've been very happy about. In terms of NOCTI, when we first arrived, Dr. Thomas and I realized that we had all these students in our graduating class, being a school that large, but not all the students were taking the end of program NOCTI assessment. Teachers weren't identifying. We immediately took that excuse away and said, this is the one accountability factor. We bring in over 200 evaluators. Our technical teachers are locked away for the first day. The first day is performance exam, where evaluators are evaluating these students as they go through a series of jobs, sometimes 6 separate jobs, and evaluating them on that. The next 2 days are written examinations. Everything is sent off to NOCTI in Michigan, and we get the scores back. And we're one of the largest schools in terms of testing that number of students, as well as in NIMS, which is the machining test. So you can see our growth there as well.
And we operate on a model of an AB day schedule, and the students are in their technical areas 3 of the 8 periods. Most of them are like the one over on the left, where A day they would have their, say, early childhood is the area selected here, and then B day they'd have it 2 days, and it just rotates back and forth. Several of our programs like culinary and construction, where they need extended periods of time to work, they would enter first period and they're there till 3rd period, which means from 8 in the morning till 1:30 in the afternoon in their technical area and then 1 academic class. But then the next day they would have all 4 periods of academics. So we have the option of operating either way with this schedule. As you know, we have a lot of sports programs. As I say, we're not real good at a lot of things, but we do have a lot of participation. And the beauty of it is, honestly, we have kids on our teams who, if they stayed here, they would have been cut on a lot of our sports, or they stayed at any of their home schools, and it's just great. Some of these kids have never been on real organized sports teams before. We are pretty good at track, though.
Yeah.
That's our thing. And bowling. That's not anybody at bowling. One of our better sports. We have a lot of organizations other than sports. A lot of these are national organizations, and they have national competitions, and we've had students national levels and all of those, the skills, the home builder, the SCCLA, the TSA. So it's a great opportunity, especially for some student who's probably never been 10 miles from home before. All of a sudden they're in Louisville or Kansas City or Vegas or somewhere at a competition. We had a musical. This is the first. We had surprisingly a large number of students that this is their passion, and we partnered with Cal Weary, many of you know, the Weary Arts Group, and we did a little shop of horrors, and we had the plan, and it was quite a fun time this past fall. And we're getting ready to do Midsummer's Night's Dream soon here. So we're trying to cultivate arts here for our students who are interested in this. We've presented many times. We're getting called on a lot of organizations, publications. I guess bragging a little bit. We try to stay very active at the state and national level. We'll attend a national policy seminar in D.C. in March, where we'll meet with U.S. congressmen and senators. Scott was at Harrisburg today with 4 students, meeting with all the local legislators, talking with them about education, and they just love to talk to students. And that's it. Now here's where we have to apologize. Mr. Boyer went home deathly ill today. We were like spraying the whole building. He left.
He's our business manager.
He's a business manager. We know surface. If you have any super detailed questions, we'll have to get back to you. You have the whole packet. What we have is we're not going to walk through the packet. We'll walk more through the process and the highlights here for you. this is, we operate on a pretty tight deadline. We have backed it up. In the past couple of years, you can see when the preliminary is completed, we have this, take it to the JOC. We have a meeting in October at our school with all the area superintendents, and then it's officially presented to our joint operating committee, and then they adopt it in November. And we send it out to all the boards at that time. The budget's based on enrollment projections. And like I said, we work right around with the number of 1,700 students. Here is when you compare this year's and last year's, the salary benefit increases are results of negotiated agreements there, and the operational expenses seem to get increased there. Here's a breakdown showing you what. Last page, what those increases are. The salary increase, that was negotiated when you combine all the several unions. Health insurance, FICA, we all know about retirement costs in Pennsylvania. See that. Tuition reimbursement, and our workman's comp insurance. You can see the pieces right down there.
I worked 30-some years in Maryland, and this just blows my mind when I see these numbers up here.
Because it's a totally different world down here when it was living down across the districts and all. Okay. You see a transportation cost, facilities staying flat there, the academic staying, trying to keep as many things. We go back every year, zero base. Take every program, what do we need, what's it going to cost to run it next year with the number of kids, and that's what we do when we get back August and September. We come up with this to have it ready. Here's the way Mr. Blue sets it up. He shows the tuition. There's the vocational subsidy we get. That's for having our programs up to speed, going well on the 339. We've always been able to get that. Retirement reimbursement that comes back. Social Security. That shows preliminary revenue there. That's showing no increase. There's the revenue keeping it flat. There's next year's budget, and he sets it up as a deficit. And here was the options as they were presented by request to the JOC. The letter A straight down, just showing the straight increase there of what we were bringing in and what the budget was. The next one, we have a substantial enough balance at the Lincoln Intermediate Unit Insurance Trust Fund to skip a month, that's a month there, and we skipped a month this year also, and that drops it down. The next one was, we have tremendous bus rides for some of our students. Some of our students get home before 6 and get to school at 10 or 8. So at the request of the several JOC members, we put in, got estimates on adding one bus or adding 2 buses to decrease ride time. The JOC voted on the budget to, and we'll be having our recognition this Thursday for them.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for inviting us. We'd like to come and
Questions or comments?
I do have a question. You
Yes, sir.
mentioned that you're moving to an IB career program. What makes it IB?
It's International Baccalaureate. There's
What's the difference?
It doesn't change the career tech programs. It's just another. It's like an AP course, advanced placement. There are IB high schools. There's a charter in the International Baccalaureate High School.
What I'm asking, I know a little bit about
Okay.
their jargon. They talk about transdisciplinary education, and there are all kinds of other structural differences in the IB approach to education. How does that apply in a technical school?
It won't change our technical programs. The students will take, they need to take 2 IB classes, and then there's like a service project and a language project and a professional studies, and when they
complete all this, there's tests for each one. In other words, when they finish IB psychology, there's a test they'll take, and they'll get a score like an AP class, in the same way with all of them. And they'll have a senior career-related technical program of study project to complete. And this goes on their resume. This will help them when they go to college, and it's a very well-designed curriculum that teachers go get trained in to
And this would be in lieu of their English 10 or their 10th grade science. Right. So they're taking this course instead of English 11 or 12.
Well, I can understand that. I was just curious to know if there's any, like, just minor example you could give of how this IB is different from, say, an honors or even an AP course. Is there a really
more
different
in-depth
approach?
curriculum? There's a lot. Definitely not an expert on any of the academic curriculums. I haven't, we're sending teachers to the training, but it's definitely a lot more rigor involved in the course than, say, our regular English class. It will be for our, the kids in medical profession that want to go on, and get a degree probably in it, or students in engineering tech who really want to go be an engineer. Because I think everybody knows, a lot of students head to college from everywhere and they're not ready. They get there and they're taking remediation courses and paying money for that. We want hopefully these kids will be ready for their college courses. And it's, as you saw, it's a 25% of our students at most. You saw that. Half of them are going right to work.
Pretty darn good chunk in my mind.
Pardon?
A good chunk in my mind.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to see it that large, frankly. I'm glad to see it.
Thank you.
And I'm not saying it should be bigger. I'm just surprised to see that
We
many
think
go
that's,
off to 4-year
when you look at our, certain fields lend themselves to that. Like if you're in the welding program, a couple students will go to Penn Tech, they're more advanced, but most of those are going to go to work. If they're in that machining program, and if you can give any of your middle school students advice, sending their school to take precision machining, because we have about 6 or 8 employees for every student beating the door down, and it's not a dirty, grimy job. We're buying $60,000 and $70,000 CNC machines over there, and we can't keep the kids in the building because they're getting hired so quick. And we do want to invite, if any of you have never been through the school, please contact us, let us know. We'd love to take you through, especially during the day when the kids are there. I think you'd enjoy it, seeing what's happening over there. Nice and close for you.
And you've seen the shift now that literally the technical programs are almost considered advanced placement with the number of schools that are offering that credit at their post-secondary institution. We're being approached by these post-secondary institutions saying this is the credit that we're going to give you, and then when they're evaluating our technical teachers, resume, going, wow, you have more experience and you're doing more stuff and spending more time in that technical program than we have even at our post-secondary institution. That's in terms of Thaddeus Stevens, Penn College of Technology. But then we've even been approached by 4-year schools based on the engineering, the precision machining, the welding and the fabrication, because they talk about they can teach all this theory, but they can't do the hands-on part that our students are walking in with. So it's definitely been something that we're being approached now for what we've been doing and just the reputation we built here in the state of Pennsylvania with York County School of Technology.
And you also have one student in the full-day adult ed run mechatronics program, which is a super opportunity for any senior. We know a lot of seniors get a lot of things done early and they have a lot of room in their schedules, and they are learning everything in there, electronics, PLC, program logic controller operation, and when if a student wanted to be an engineer, like an electrical engineer or something, that would be a great background. Or they could get hired, like up at the big box here, to run the automation systems or any place that's robotics, and that's a super opportunity. We can't seem to get it to catch on. A lot of kids don't want to leave their high school, but we have it so they graduating here. They're a York Suburban student. They could play York Suburban sports and take that program, especially as close as you all are.
Ellen, did you have a question?
No, I'm fine. I'm stand in awe of what you have done and the way that this school has developed. It is quite an accomplishment and quite a wonderful addition to the educational experience here in this county that we are able to offer this, to students. I happen to be at York Adams Academy, And you see these kinds of other opportunities that are just available in this county is amazing. And a lot of our students will look at going to School of Technology for further training and things like that. Absolutely.
We're passionate about it, as are the faculty over there. We have a great faculty. We don't have much turnover with the teachers. Have a great administrative team. So I'm glad to be there.
Ms. Mason, could we have an individual vote?
Individual?
Yeah.
Tillman?
Yes.
Gillette?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Fryrick?
Yes.
Sears?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Sanders?
Yes.
Posnow?
Yes. Thank you.
Motion approved.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you guys are welcome to stay, but...
Okay, next, the administration recommends board approval of the contract with Paragon Engineering Services in the amount of $14,300 for the design, specifications, and bidding construction administration phase for the replacement of the middle school chiller.
So moved.
Second.
Guess you can do a short vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Next item, the administration recommends board approval of the IRS mileage reimbursement rate of .455 per mile for the 2018 calendar year.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Short roll call.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. The administration recommends board approval of the resolution certifying the tax rate for the 2018-19 budget will not have a tax increase that exceeds the Act 1 index of 2.8%.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Yes, we can.
Just so you know, I will be voting no on this.
Roll call. Yeah.
Robinson?
Yes.
Sanders?
Yes.
Tillman?
Yes.
Gillette?
Yes.
Fryrick?
No.
Sears?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Posnow?
Yes. Motion passes.
The next two items I'm combining. The administration is recommending board approval to advertise and solicit bids for network switches and access points for Indian Rock, and to advertise and solicit bids for the WAN connections between East York Elementary, the middle school, and Yorkshire Elementary.
You have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Henry's here if there are questions or anybody who didn't hear the presentation before.
Could we just get a rough estimate of what you think the cost will be?
What's your guess?
For the network switches, I think we're looking at about $40,000 after E-rate discount.
So that's for both E and F, that's the total?
No, that's for
That's E.
for the
That's E.
correct, for the
What about F?
network, the internal network connections. On F with the fiber connection, that is purely an exploratory RFP. Your price may vary, that's why we're doing the RFP. A wild guess, I don't even want to do a wild guess.
Concerned that we didn't bring this from planning.
I have a question. These were just discussed at committee meeting this past week, am I correct?
At finance.
We have a process, or have had a process in place where something coming out of committee goes to planning meeting for further discussion before it's put on the agenda. There's another item down here too, which I have the same question. And I'm wondering why we're putting these on this voting agenda as opposed to going to a planning meeting when we have a process in place. That's all. I mean, is there some urgency or something needs to be done right away, or
I did have some urgency on this one, because in order to meet the E-rate timeline,
I know there is a time.
that was moved. For the last 2 years, that deadline has been in April, and I was operating on that assumption when it actually came
To be March.
in March, which moved it up a month. So I came to you in a more abbreviated fashion in an effort to move that forward.
I just hate to see us give up that part of our process if we have it in place. If we don't have to, unless there's, you know, very, very time-sensitive kind of thing. Thank you.
Yeah, understood. And certainly that's the conversation we'll have with the J item. It's
I
for
understand
that same.
yeah. I understand. It just, we do have a process in place.
Understand. Yep.
Other discussion? Short.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Next item is the administration recommends board approval of the 2-year amendment to the Childcare agreement with Bright Horizons Children's Centers, LLC from July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2020.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Short.
Question or clarification, I think we probably covered this in the committee meeting, but I think we came away stating that we were going to commit 5 classrooms. Is that correct, or am I off by 1? For a 2-year period.
Can you help me out?
Commit, I guess this is, yes, we
Yep.
have currently committed 5.
And if
That,
we
that
need,
school age room can be used,
suppose we needed all 5 of those 2 years, a year from now, due to some excessive growth. What do we do? Do we have precedence? Or do we
or
have?
what, if we needed the room.
We need those rooms.
There's an out.
Something in the contract about that. Yeah, that we can terminate the contract.
Other? Okay. Short.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. H and I am putting together, and that is their contracts for the high school. One was for the dance just this past weekend, and one is for inflatables. They're both for Thon. Dr. Ellis apologizes on the one for the Snowco dance. The administrator did not get the paperwork over in time for us to get it at the planning meeting, so that's why it came to this meeting.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. J, the administration recommends board approval of the contract with Frontline Technologies for applicant tracking for a total amount of $12,727.68. This is a new contract for the district that will be used as part of the recruiting, advertising, selecting, and filtering applicants, interview and hiring process for all staff. This amount does include a one-time fee for $5,500. It's also been prorated in order to sign this contract, it has to list the one-time fee of the $5,500 and list the annual fee of the $7,227. They are prorating it for us from here to the end of the year. That proration brings that $7,000 down to $2,554. So the total cost of this at the time of implementation then would be $8,054.
So moved.
Second. Discussion?
What's this going to cost us then on a yearly basis, year 2, 3?
$7,227.
$7,000
Correct.
on a yearly basis. And they're going to start this when? They're going to start this?
They're actually going to start working on getting us implemented tomorrow. As soon as we have board approval, that was the thing that they would start moving us forward on it.
It takes 4 to 6 weeks to get all the back procedures set up to match our protocol for who sees applications, the flow of work.
So this can manage all of that,
That-
as opposed to spreadsheets that I know that Sue had and that kind of stuff. It's going to make this more a friendlier process, so to speak.
Definitely more efficient than what we currently are using.
So what are we using now?
It's
Dr.
like a-
Ketterman?
A homegrown method. Well, we are using PA Educator, for where the applicants will file their resumes and whatnot.
What is Skyward? Is that our?
That's the business system.
No, that's our financial
Financial.
management.
Did we look at Skyward Fast Track?
Mr. Henry?
We did look at Skyward Fast Track, and we did actually begin the implementation on that. The advantage of AppleTrack is its ability to automatically link to a lot of pools of existing teachers, and we elected to move forward with that because of that additional ability to advertise and to access that existing pool of instructors.
What would the comparative cost have been?
I don't have that.
And this Apple Track, or whatever it's called, the frontline system, integrate with Skyward?
No, it's a standalone system.
That's interesting. Unless I misread their website, they claim that Skyward is a strategic partner. And so
They are a strategic partner with Frontline for use on ASOP. And we are using that. Those systems are linked together, that when we link out from, when we have instructors, people that get substitutes when they,
So it's not a full integration?
Frontline, not with all of their different products, that's correct. Frontline has acquired around 11 companies, I believe, over the last 18 months. And
buying binge.
So they're consolidating all of these different companies.
They're putting people out of business, basically. Watch.
Buying the market,
But
yeah.
that said, so then with what we're proposing to buy, how do we move the information from that system to our system?
At this point, they'll need to enter that into Skyward. It's possible down
Any
the
idea
road.
what that effort is?
Well, it's all individual applicants. So if I want to apply for a job, then I put my information into the system. So we're not, correct me if I'm
Put it
speaking.
into the applicant tracking system.
Right.
Once you're accepted, how does that then get to our system?
Through these back setups that take over the next 4 to 6 weeks.
So there is integration.
I defer to Dr. Redding on that.
Integration, yes, on a lot of levels, but that integration takes place because of the setup that's required from folks that currently do the management of the hiring process.
When I say integration, I mean you would have machine-readable data in one system, and it would find its way into the other system without human intervention, other than
I think
maybe
that's an
blood
accurate
pressure.
statement, wouldn't you?
That would not be my understanding at this time. It's possible custom programming through Skyward could accommodate that.
So when would you want to move something over? When someone was actually hired, or do you want to bring the entire history over of all these applicants you're interested in?
The only thing we would actually bring over, per se, would be entering the new employee.
The employee
The
hires,
hiring
yeah.
process would occur all within AppleTrack. Once we decide to hire them, then their demographic data as well.
Just setting up a new hire, okay.
in this forward. And that, I'm not sure is fully integratable, I think is where your question is. If we decide to hire somebody out of that product, although, you know, I'm trying to recall, there's, you know what it is. It's a add-on module that we decided not to pursue this year because it does all of the payroll forms, the help me out, the W-2s. You can do all of that management piece with a module. They advised us not to overload ourselves the first year with trying to do all of that that's the word, onboarding, onboarding paperwork, but could pull all that together for us to collect all of the forms that they need electronically, enroll them in the healthcare, but that onboarding piece is the piece we decided not. They said, especially the fast track.
If you want to do that at some point, what would that cost, roughly?
I didn't see the quotes that came in, and maybe because we didn't pursue it.
The questions? Do we want to do a voice vote on this? Rachel?
Tillman?
Yes.
Fryrick?
Yes.
Sears?
No.
Scolette? Sanders?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Posnow?
Yes.
Okay. I handed out to each of you before the board's meeting started, a spreadsheet that we usually start with this time during the budget process that kind of breaks out the revenue and the expense to give you a summary on the last page. If you, prior members, if you recall, new board members, the estimate column refers, that's what I was talking about a little earlier when Mr. Sears asked, when will we see more of what the budget actually, where we think we're going to end up. That estimate column is what we start looking at now, where we think our budget is actually going to end up from a revenue and expense point of view. So going forward, the numbers will change in that column. The numbers will change in the proposed budget column. Each time now that you see one of these reports where there's a change, I will highlight it for you and tell you specifically what the change was, whether it was increase, decrease, and what the story may be behind it if there's a story. All the way to the right, the projected columns for the next 2 years, they're blank at this point because we had purchased a new forecasting program. We're in the middle of moving over to that. My goal is by the finance meeting to share that new forecasting model with the committee and those in attendance, and then we'll move forward with putting numbers in those columns, and there may actually be another report that comes out of that as well. That's yet to be determined. So on the revenue and expense, it's pretty much broken out like it was when I did the presentation. You see the revenue codes broke out by the local, state, and federal numbers. And then on the expenditures, you see them broken out by the objects which the board is very comfortable working with in a grouping. And then on the very last page is the summary, which shows the expense and revenue together, shows, more importantly, the bottom half of it shows the change in the fund balances, what those numbers are. For example, right now in the 2017 estimate column, if you look down there, change in fund balance says $588,334. When we approved the budget for 17-18, there was a projection that we were going to have to use $923,000 from fund balance. So we are ahead of budget right now. So those are the kind of numbers that this document gives you as we move forward in the budget process to see exactly where we do stand with the fund balance. That's pretty much what this last page is for. And what the board wanted the projections on there for too is because the theory has been that at some point all schools are going to run out of fund balance and what will happen. So that's why we've always gone 2 years. To look 5 years ahead, really things change annually to begin with, to go out 5 years, but the 2 years seems to be a good year to look at. So that's why we've kind of settled on a 2-year lookout rather than going out the 5. I mean, we do in other things, but for this document, we just go out the 2. Any questions?
What's Object 880? Refund prior years.
Refund prior year, that's taxes.
That we're refunding?
We're refunding, and the refund there has to do with tax appeals. No other questions? That concludes my report.
Ms. Atkins.
Alright, so I guess no surprise, I'm going to start off with Minithon. So I actually have a lot of materials that Mr. Whiteley gave me to hand out to you guys. He's our faculty advisor for Minithon and Student Council. You can take anything, everything, up to you. But, so I feel like I'm saying this every time, but we are in the thick of it with fundraising and preparing for Minithon. It's 32 days away. All the Student Council is working on it, and if you visit our school, the hallways are covered in posters just from Snowco, for Donor Drive, people are working on the line dance, all of our events are coming together, so obviously we are getting really excited for it. I don't want to jinx anything, but things are really looking really good on the finance side of things, although since we have been so successful in the past 4 years, we want to try something new this year to try and push for more funding from students. So we are planning on having a mandatory Minithon meeting during Flex this Thursday to explain some of the activities, how to prepare for the 10-hour event, and then different strategies to fundraise on Donor Drive. And so, as I said before, our goal is $80,000, and while things are looking good with businesses, obviously that's not going to fulfill our goal. And so hopefully encouraging students to get more creative in fundraising will produce positive results and hopefully show at the big reveal on February 23rd. And as Dr. Adams said, we had our Minithon Snowco dance. It was held at the Bond this past Saturday, and it went really well. 325 students attended, which is really impressive because we only had 3 days to sell tickets with all of the snow. So it was a really good outcome, which it was higher. It's only our second year of doing Snowco, and the attendance was a lot higher than last year, so it's always good. We did have extra security to make sure that everyone was in line with the school's code of conduct and everything like that, but students were aware of this on Friday. We raised over $4,000 for Minithon from this event, which is obviously really helpful and awesome. And we had one of our 4 Diamonds families attend, so they shared a little bit of their story, and they will also be at our Minithon event as well. So it was a really successful night and fun for students with the winter that kind of drags sometimes. And then also on Saturday morning, the Trojan Wrestling Club was hosting their TWC Trojan Battle. This was a tournament at the high school with 13 junior high and senior high teams that came to participate, and there were a lot of York Suburban medalers, and I believe the junior high got second place overall, so that's really good for their club. At the high school, Allie Reinecker was up for Athlete of the Week last week for basketball, and the girls basketball team beat Susquehanna 32-30 last week, so it must have been a really exciting game. And as for the swim team, both the boys and girls beat Dover really handily last week, and they have 3 meets this week because of the snow, so if you want to see them, you have plenty of opportunities. And the whole 6th grade visited the high school last week to get a lesson in the planetarium with Mr. Whiteley, and the middle school is also gearing up for their Bowl for Kids' Sake night, which is coming up in early February. Any questions?
Said they had 3 meets?
Yeah.
They're doing West York. And then, is it Northeastern they're making up? Is that the one?
I can get you the dates if you want, but it's,
Oh,
yeah, they have a lot of, I don't know, busy week for them.
hired group of swimmers.
Yeah.
Thank you. The committee meeting schedule is linked online. And Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Posnow. As you can see on our agenda, the activity and communications reports are provided. I'm also pleased to say that your communications committee is so dedicated that we've scheduled an extra meeting for January 25th at 5 o'clock to discuss many and sundry issues. All are welcome to attend. Any questions? Hearing none?
How do you work
Sundry.
sundry?
Is
That's my only
Yeah,
question.
what is sundry? Sundry.
I'm trying to keep them organized over here. Don't challenge them too much, for crying out loud. Don't challenge them.
Mr. Sears. Thank you, Mr. President. Minutes to the meetings from October 18th and December 13th were provided for you, and we hope you take a look at them. We have great note-taking and minutes. They're very informative. I'll give you a little recap of the 117 meeting. We had a presentation by Kennetha Hansen of the York County Economic Alliance and David Earlbaum of Endurance Real Estate Group, talking about the need for something called ALERTA, which is a local economic revitalization tax abatement program request. The property in question is 693 North Hills Road, currently on the books for $2.8 million, generates about $60,000 in taxes per year. The current assessment, I said, is 2.8. The plan is to put a 350,000 square foot distribution center on that property, do about $24.5 million of improvements, and come away with an assessment at $30 a square foot, give or take, of about $10.5 million. LERTA applies to only the improvements, which would be about $7.7 million. The typical structure of the LERTA, which can be negotiated by the taxing jurisdiction, would be something like this: a 10-year graduated schedule, abating 100% in the first year, 90% in the second year, and working down to 10%, and finally taxing at the full assessment. Over a 10-year period, if it were structured like that, with today's interest rate, or today's millage rate, we would lose a potential $87,600. That would be the cost of it. There's no discernible impact on county and township as far as additional services that they would have to render. So to them, the incentive to grant ALERTA is slightly different than ours. We, on the other hand, have a potential, if there's employment increase, of having to educate kids. And it's very difficult to say what that impact would be, but it's not insignificant, so it's something we need to think about. We also talked about the Act 55 requirements relative to lunch, and there was a question brought up by Mr. Toman and others about just how specific these grant requests can be without disclosing student identification. So there's some work to be done on that. Bright Horizons extension was discussed. We talked a little bit about the 2018-19 budget, in particular the impact of increased charter enrollments, and that there was a potential increase in staff of 3 full-time employees. Dr. Ketterman said she would supply more information relative to K-5 staffing. The last thing was Vince's report on E-rate, and he gave us a little bit on some alternatives, which we talked about tonight and approved. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Personnel Committee, Mr. Robinson, didn't we just hear from you?
Yes, we did.
Well,
please note the addendum located at the end of the agenda that includes additional personnel committee items. You have before you the personnel report, which includes retirement, resignation, employment, leave of absence, reappointment of spring coaches, substitute teachers, guest teachers, prospective teacher as a substitute teacher, volunteer spring coach, and volunteers. Would any board member like considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below-mentioned items.
Second.
Do this as a short.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
And
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
No,
Ellen, no, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on two of these coaches. This is just giving out a hand over here. Two of these coaches that I have known over the years, Lisa Eckenrode and Jamie Evans. Lisa for many years doing the girls soccer program, and Jamie doing something like 18 or 20 years with the volleyball program, the large percentage of them, Jamie as the head coach. So I think they have done their due diligence and service to the young people of York Suburban and done a really, really good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fryrick. In conclusion, I would like to say that your Personnel Committee, exercising its diligence, will be meeting on the 30th of January at 4:30 to discuss issues pertaining to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All are welcome. Any questions?
That's in addition to the regular schedule, and
Yes.
it will be advertised appropriately.
Yes. That concludes my report.
Is there a Lincoln Intermediate Unit Board report? York Adams Academy, Ms. Farrell.
Because of the way York Adams Academy Board meets, we will not be reorganizing until next week when we finally meet in the month of January. We will then be approving our budget for the 18-19 school year, and it will be in the hands of the participating school districts in time for at least our February planning meeting, so you'll have an opportunity to discuss that. That concludes that report. You didn't give me a chance on additional committee reports. I was going to give a little heads up on facilities, which you had asked us to do, just because it takes, because of the time factor. Facilities Committee is looking not only at the projects for the coming summer, we are waiting for engineering reports, architecture reports, and you will be very soon asking for approval to go out for bids on these various projects as they are coming through the committee. We have also begun looking at projects for the summer of 19, which is part of the 18-19 school year, simply because some of them are going to be much more extensive, and we want to allow enough time to get the architectural work started and the engineering work. We have found that the sooner we get these projects started and in our pipeline, the sooner we can get our requests out for bids, and gives us a better response and hopefully better pricing. So, thank you very much.
Ms. Mason, York Adams Tax Bureau.
There's a meeting next Monday.
Okay. And since Ms. Schroeder's not here, the York County School of Technology, we got to hear from them tonight, so moving on. I don't see any visitors left. And the board meeting and committee schedules are posted, and unless one of our remaining members wants to make public comment, I think we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.